Alright, Shalom. I just finished my last video. Alright, I did a breakdown of Revelation, the 8th chapter. Alright, and for this video, I'm going to be going to Revelation, the 9th chapter. Okay. This is Revelation chapter 9 and verse 1. It says, "And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit." Alright, now, the fifth angel, alright, is the first of the last 3 world wars. Right, so Revelation chapter 9, most of it, all right, is going into World War I. Okay, now when it talks about the bottomless pit, that's a reference to Europe. Now verse 2, it says, "And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit." Now, verse 2 is going to World War I. All right, once again. It says, verse 3, "And it came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power." Now, during the time of World War I, you had fighter jets, right? That was like one of the main weapons that the nations was using, to fight against each other. Right now, it says locusts, right? Because locusts, when you look at locusts and them flying, it will look like a fighter jet that was used during World War I. Okay, now this is an image, of locusts, flying. And if you think about World War I, you think about the fighter jets that they had during that time, it would look just like that. So, as the scriptures talk about how the prophets, they speak in similitudes. All right, so you have, John the Revelator that's seeing revelations of what's going to take place in the last days. All right, and during World War I, he's seeing, the fighter jets, and he's describing it, to the best of his ability, what he's seeing, right? Now, he likened the fighter jets unto being locusts. And it looks like, when you look at locusts, it looks like fighter jets. Well, you can see how he would compare it to locusts. So Revelation chapter 9, in verse 3, it says, "And they came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power." Right now, what it says, as the scorpions have power, all right, because we know, we look at a scorpion, right? The tail, you got the tail, you got the stinger in this tail. That's where the power resides, right? Now, when you look at the fighter jets that was being used during World War I, okay, you had the guy, right, the gunman, that was like, he was like located in the back of the plane, using the gun manually. So that's what it's referencing to. Now, verse 4, it says, "And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of the Most High in their foreheads." Right, so during World War I, you had Jakes that was fighting in that war. All right, so any Jake, all right, any Israelite that was a part of the elect during World War I, or part of the elect during World War I, they wouldn't get hurt, or they wouldn't get touched, right? They wouldn't die, because their sea line had to get preserved. So that's what it's referencing in Revelation chapter 9, verse 4. All right, any man who was part of the elect during that time, all right, he was going to be protected. All right, now I'm gonna get Isaiah 40. All right, because it says, "Shall not hurt the grass of the earth, nor any green thing." It says, "nor any tree," right? Because my last video, all right, I brought it out how trees and grass, all right, can be likened unto men in the scriptures. Okay, we can get Isaiah 40. Then we can get Mark. Isaiah 40 in verse 6 says, "The voice said, Cry, and he said, What shall I cry? All flesh is grass, and all the goodliness thereof is as the flower of the field." Right, so all flesh is grass, showing you that men can be likened unto grass. Now we can get one showing you that man could be likened unto trees. right? Now in Revelation chapter 9, all right, is going to those men, all right, that will be a part of the elect, okay, during World War I, and they will be protected, you know, from all the gunfire and, you know, from all the, you know, the killing and the death that took place. This is Mark chapter 8 in verse 24. It says, and he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. Okay, so men can be likened unto trees, and men can also be likened unto grass. All right, now you had the elect men, the elect Jake, that was fighting during World War I, that they was being protected, because their seed line had to be preserved, you know, to receive salvation when Yahushua returns. So Revelation chapter 9 in verse 5, it says, and to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months, and their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. All right, now where it says that 5 months, right, where it talks about the 5 months, that's equaling 5 years. All right, because, you know, you have World War I that lasted for about you know, roughly 5 years, right? You have something called the Treaty of Versailles, if I'm pronouncing it correct, right? The Treaty of Versailles, I got, you know, this article from Wikipedia. It says the Treaty of Versailles was a peace treaty signed on 28 June 1919 as the most important treaty of World War I. It ended the state of war between Germany and most of the Allied powers. It was signed in the Palace of Versailles exactly 5 years after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which led to the war. So there you have it, right? You have something called the Treaty of Versailles, right? In that 5 months, that is referencing in Revelation chapter 9 verse 5, right? That's going into 5 years. You know, World War I was about 5 years, right? So verse 6, it says, and in those days shall men seek death and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Yeah, so during the time of World War I, all right, you had, you know, a lot of people dying, all right, and the technology that was around that time wasn't as advanced as the technology that we have today. Okay, so the type of injuries that people were receiving, they couldn't really treat it, right? So they was living in pain and agony, right? That's why I said how men shall, you know, seek death and shall not find it, all right, because the technology back then was, you know, it was bad. Okay, so verse 7, Revelation chapter 9 verse 7, and the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. All right, now in Revelation 7, right, where it talks about the crowns like gold, that's a reference to the helmets that the men were wearing in the fighter jets that they was operating, right? So you had the fighter jets that was being likened unto locusts, right? And then you had men that was in the fighter jets, right? And they had like these type of helmets. I'm gonna search it up. So these are the helmets that they had. It's called the pickle hobby during the time of World War I. All right, so we read it, locust. Well, we went into it. Locust is likened unto men. I mean, Salakia. Locust is likened unto the fighter jets. All right, and then it talked about the crown of gold, which is reference to this helmet that they was wearing. All right, in those fighter jets. And then it talks about the faces of men, because you had men that operated the plane. Right, you had somebody that operated the front, you know, he was driving the fighter jet, but then you had somebody that was, you know, in the back, all right, in the tail, that was operating the gun, right, and shooting it manually. So Revelation chapter 9 and verse 8, It says, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth was as the teeth of lions. Now, this is going into the scarves that they was wearing, right? So you had the men that was in the fighter jets, right? You had the helmet that they had, the crown of gold, and then they had like these scarves that they was wearing as well. I'm gonna see if I can search it up. So that's the hair of a woman, right? It's going into the scarves that they was wearing during World War I. Something similar to this. It was operating while they was in the fighter jets. What they was wearing while they was in the fighter jets. All right. Then it talked about. I'm gonna read it again. Revelation chapter 9 and verse 8. It says, and they had hair as the hair of a woman, going into the scars that they was wearing. Then it said, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. Now the teeth is going into is representing their weapon power. To Psalms chapter 3 in verse 6, it says, I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people that have set themselves against me round about. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my power, for thou hast smitten on my enemies upon the cheekbone, that has broken the teeth of the ungodly. Now teeth is going into power. All right, so the weaponry that was being used during World War I, all right, that's being, referred to as teeth, all right, which is power. So Revelation chapter 9, in verse 9, it says, and they had breastplates as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of the chariots of many horses running to battle. Now it's going to the warplanes, right? You could picture it. I showed you the picture of the locusts, right? How them flying in the sky. Right, picture, hundreds, thousands of fighter jets, flying in the sky, all right, and the noise that they would be making. It says, and they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. In verse 11, verse 10 again says, and they had tails like unto scorpions. All right, once again, the fighter jet, you had somebody in the front, somebody in the back, in the tail, right? Because the scorpions, their powers in their tail, right? So you had somebody that was in the back of the fighter jet operating it manually. It says, verse 11, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, and in the Greek tongue have his name Apollyon. Okay, now that's referencing somebody called Kaiser Wilhelm. Kaiser Wilhelm. All right, because we know men, angel could be likened unto men. Right, so it says they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, right? We know that angels can be likened unto men. We get a precept on that. Second Ezra chapter 1 and verse 40, it says, Nahum, Habakkuk, and Zephaniah. This is Aggeus, Zechariah, and Malachi, which is called also an angel of the Lord, right? So men can be likened unto angels of the Heavenly Father, right? Now, the angel in Revelation chapter 8, or that king in Revelation, not 8, Revelation chapter 9, in verse 11. All right, once again, that's Kaiser Wilhelm. Kaiser Wilhelm. I'm gonna search it up. So I searched up Kaiser Wilhelm II, World War I. It says Kaiser Wilhelm II was the German emperor from 1888 to 1918 and was a key through controversial public figure during World War I. It says his aggressive foreign policy, including support for Austria-Hungary against Serbia after the 1914 assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, played a significant role in the war's outbreak. So there you go. That's the king in Revelation chapter 9 in verse 11, right? Then it talked about whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue have his name Apollyon. Now, the word Abaddon and Apollyon means it means destruction. All right, it means destruction. So Revelation chapter 9 and verse 12. Now it says, "One woe is past, and behold, there came two woes more hereafter." Right. So once again, Revelation chapter 9 was going into World War I. Right. So you have one woe is past, the World War I passed. Then it said two woes more hereafter come. All right, which is what? World War II, and then you're gonna have World War III. Okay, which we're in right now. So Revelation chapter 9 and verse 13, it says, "And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before the Most High." Slaki, Revelation chapter 9 verse 13, "And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before the Most High, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates." It says, because we know, World War III is going to be in the Middle East, right? That's where the great river Euphrates is located, and that's where World War III is going to take place. All right. It says, "And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the third part of men." All right. Now the third part of men, all right, is going to Esau, Edom. All right. You have three classifications of men. All right. You have the Israelites, so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans. You got the heathens, which are the rest of the nations, and then you got Esau, Edom, so-called white man, all right, which is the wicked in the Bible. It says, "In the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. I heard the number of them." Right now, that 200,000 is the ICBM nuclear missiles, right? So the 200,000, all right, that's a reference to 200 million nuclear missiles that's going to get shot off. It says, "And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire, smoke, and brimstone." All right, that's going into the ICBMs. Okay, because once the ICBMs get shot off and they hit their target, you're gonna have major destruction, major fire that's going to be unleashed. Now it says, verse 19, "For their power is in their mouth and in their tails, for their tails were like unto serpents, and their heads, and with them they do hurt." All right, once again, all right, going into the ICBMs, nuclear missiles. Right, so in verse 19, it says, "For their power is in their mouth," right? Because we know one ICBM has multiple warheads attached to it, all right, at the top of it. All right, now it says, "For the tail were like unto serpents." The tail represents the delivery system of the ICBM, right? Because it gets shot off, and then it has that tail, that fire that's going to get that pushes it up. Now verse 20, it says, and the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. And that's going into Esau Edom. Okay, or the Edomites that survived the nuclear missiles. All right, they're not gonna, turn to the Heavenly Father. Okay, and we're gonna round them up, as the scriptures talk about, right? The kings of the earth, we're gonna round them up. All right, and they're gonna go into slavery. All right, the heathens are gonna go to slavery. All right, and Yahweh Shai is gonna return. The kingdom of heaven is gonna be established, right? And that's how it's gonna take place. All right, so Revelation chapter 9, it goes into World War I, and it goes into the destruction of Esau Edom. Okay, so I want to give all honor and glory, infinite praises to the Heavenly Father Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Rachak Kodash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of GMS. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect out there pushing His word in truth and sincerity. Shalom.